Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about gains. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skill in my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And something, again, I make this similar video about once every few months just to kind of break some of this down so that people understand it. We reword it a little bit each time. But the idea is the same, and this is a take-home that needs to be addressed. It needs to be driven home for every single young lifter out there, all these guys trying to get started. Gaining muscle is not complicated. It is an absolutely not complicated process. Complicated training comes into play when you have sport-specific goals and you are trying to compete at the elite level in some sport. All right, then training complexity starts to go up. Or if you want to compete in multiple sports concurrently, like you want to compete in 2 or 3 different sports in the same year, your training is going to need to be complicated. But if your goal is to gain as much muscle as you possibly can, there's like zero complexity to that. The biggest complexity you're going to deal with is going to be figuring out how much food to eat, how much sleep you need. That should be more complicated than your training. Now, when I say maximizing muscle, I don't mean necessarily having a perfect physique, because the perfect physique rarely occurs by you maximizing and gaining as much muscle as you possibly can. Having whatever textbook perfect physique you envision may require you not gaining maximum muscle. But for the majority of you out there, if you are nowhere near the size that you want to be at, gaining maximum muscle needs to be a priority, not having perfect proportions and all of that, because that's going to take you years to refine. But getting about as big as you can possibly get to reach 90% of your total size you will be able to reach for your entire life, you can probably do within 3 years of walking in the gym. Again, your drug-free potential. Problem is people have overcomplicated the process, and we'll discuss the refining a little bit in here too, because I mean that has to be addressed because some people care about that. Not everyone does. Some guys just want to get really jacked. The key to gaining muscle, it's very, very simple. This works every single time. Lift as much weight as you can lift with good form, as frequently as you can get away with it, with as much volume as you can recover from. Eat enough food to gain muscle, get enough sleep, so rest, recovery, fuel to gain maximum muscle. That's it. That's it. I'm going to go out on a limb and say people need to understand it's not necessary for you to ever isolate a muscle. It's not necessary for you to ever put special focus on a muscle for you to gain maximum muscle in your body. I'm going to repeat that again. No isolation work or specialized work is ever required for you to maximize total muscle gain. In other words, your arms are not going to get bigger at a faster rate just because you think you've specialized in them. If your arms are capable of growing any faster than they are right now, you're not following step 1. On your big basic movements, on all the big basic movements, at least enough of them to cover every muscle in the body, you are either not lifting enough weight with good form, you're not doing it for enough volume, or you're not doing it frequently enough. That's the only 3 things that would mean that any specific muscle in your body isn't growing as fast as it possibly can. All right? You simply have not done enough volume, workload, tonnage, things like that on your big exercises if you have a muscle that isn't growing as fast as it can. If that muscle is capable of growing any faster by specializing in it, you miss something on the others. We go back to that main point. Lift as heavy as you can with good form, with as much volume as you can recover from, as frequently as you can recover from it. That's it. Notice I didn't mention reps or sets. I didn't say you have to do 3 rep sets. You have to do 10 rep sets. As long as your tension and volume are on point and you're training as frequently as your lifestyle and recovery allows for, you are going to gain as much muscle as you are capable of gaining right now in your current situation. And again, if you're doing enough big compound movements, that will facilitate it. That's it. Anyone telling you otherwise is trying to sell you nonsense. They're trying to sell you something. So people would say, well, what's the point then of isolation movements? Why would anyone do all this refining work? Well, that comes over to that refinement process. Someone says they want a certain look. Well, now your proportions and things matter. And here's the thing. If you want perfect proportions, unless you're genetically perfectly proportioned already and all of your muscles grow to each other in perfect proportions if they're all maximized, you're not going to have whatever perfect proportions you're seeking. You're going to have some muscles where you train them less. And the only way to train muscles less is to cut out some of the compound work. And then you're throwing in these smaller movements. Why? Purely because you have certain muscles that you want to continue to grow at their maximum rate, and you have other muscles that would normally be worked with the big movements that you don't want to grow any faster. You want to slow down their growth. So let's make that clear. Refinement work of any time exists for one purpose and one purpose only: to slow muscle growth everywhere else. Right? The reason you would do curls is because you want your biceps to grow, but you want to slow down your rear delt growth. You want to slow down your lat growth. You want to slow down your trapezius growth, right? Those muscles you need to slow them down. That would be a good reason for you to do curls. They're growing too fast and you need to slow them down. They're already at the maximum size that you want them at for the next 2-3 years. Okay, you need to back the volume down on your chin-ups and pull-ups, your barbell rows, and do more curls. It makes sense at that point. But you know what? I don't care if you want to throw in some curls even on the other, even if you feel that your bicep growth is in proportion to those, you want to do some curls as long as you can recover from it and it's not causing tendonitis or inflammation, then by all means carry on. It's not like it's going to hurt you. The extra work only hurts you if it interferes with recovery or takes away from the other lifts. If it takes away from the other lifts, then it's going to slow your growth, your overall growth. But that's it. It's not like a big deal. So I'll go out on a limb and say, just because I said it's easy to get all this other stuff doesn't mean you can't do some other stuff along with it. If that's your prerogative, then by all means, it probably won't negatively affect you. But if it does, then you might need to cut the other stuff out. Case by case basis. Refinement work is then for someone who says, well, I don't want to gain maximal muscle anymore. All right, that is now a refinement process. And then a dieting process as well, because you might have to gain some body fat to gain maximal muscle. In fact, I'm not going to say you might have to. For the vast majority of you genetically, you will have to. And then you have some whatever physique goal you want. Well, then you'll have to diet down, won't you? Right? You'll have to diet down. And you'll have to address those proportions. Other than a few very genetically gifted people who are going to have that look just from the other. Right? But they're in the minority. They're in the minority, and we all know that. But the gaining muscle maximally is not a difficult thing. It has been overblown and overcomplicated, and it really isn't. And here's the thing. Here's why what I would tell people, that is basically cookie cutter. Everyone can get as big as they possibly can following the other. Refinement is in what people try to sell you, but here's the thing. That refinement process is 100% individual. In other words, if you were to take 10 guys and put them on the exact same idea I just put before, put them in the same program, have them just get really big, really strong, reach a large chunk of their total potential just using all these big movements with heavy weights for high volumes, with lots of food, they're all going to have different proportions, aren't they? You go take all those same guys, one of them might have bigger chest than he does arms. Another one might have bigger quads than he does lats, whatever it happens to be. Their proportions are all going to be slightly different, aren't they? So any program that a person would then put that person on to refine that to reach whatever balance or proportion or physique they're chasing, they're all going to be put on something different, aren't they? So anyone who's then trying to sell you a program for the refinement is conning you. That is extremely individually based. In fact, anything that includes an isolation movement of any type, because you're coming back to a refinement process, no two people out of those 10 are probably, there might be, some of them might, are not going to want the same combination of refinement movements, are they? Their proportions are all different, and if you're trying to fix different proportions by stimulating as much growth as you can in one area, sustaining the growth and then slowing it in others, every single one of them is going to need a slightly different set of exercises to do that, aren't they? So if someone just writes the same program for all of them, they're still going to end up with different proportions at the end. So that doesn't work. And let's go back and simplify that. Let's even make that simple. For the person who wants to refine things, they diet it down, they're leaner, they have that certain proportion, and they're unhappy with it. They're not happy with the proportions that they developed from the big movements because they maximized growth. Everything got as big as it could, as quick as it could. Here's the simple solution to that. Train the stuff more that you need to continue to grow, and train the stuff less that you're now happy with. Is that complicated? Is that complicated? I don't think that it is. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.